Hello viewers, welcome to the second video in the series The Oriental Wisdom. I would like to express my thanks to you for showing interest in my previous video. You are requested to kindly give your views and likes and support my channel. This is the second video of the series, and in this video I will give you an overview of the Chinese civilization. First, three key factors about China. This is a map of the present day China, which is one of the major military and economic powers in the world. As you can see in the map, China is a very large country. It is one of the largest territorial powers in the world. China is the second largest country in the world with respect to population, with a population of over 1.41 billion. As you can see in this slide, China has some of the very important neighbors like Russia, India, Japan and South Korea. But the most important feature of China is that China is not merely a country but a civilization with a distinct way of life. Number two, China is the world's oldest continuous civilization with a recorded history of over 4,000 years. Now, what is the significance of China being essentially a civilization and not a country? Well, the primary significance is that over the years, or rather over the centuries, China, because it has a distinct culture and a set of ideas, it has adopted foreign ideas to the local conditions. A very good example of this phenomenon is that when in 1949 China was set up as the People's Republic of China, they put in place a communist or socialist form of government, but after a few years they adapted it to the local conditions, and this is credited to one of the greatest leaders in Chinese history, Deng Xiaoping. So we have socialism with Chinese characteristics. So Chinese adopted the socialism or socialist philosophy or Marxist philosophy to their peculiar conditions. In China there is democracy as well, but this democracy is different from the Western democracy. So that is why it's called Chinese democracy with Chinese characteristics. The third factor is that Chinese civilization was more advanced both economically and culturally than any other ancient civilization. During the ancient period as well, men and women in China wore fine silk clothes, and one of the monumental achievements of Chinese civilization has been the Great Wall of China, which is one of the wonders in the world. That is why when the Chinese leaders speak about their country's development, they don't use the word as such development, but often speak of their nation's rejuvenation, which means revival of China to the status which it held in the past. So this is a statement of current Chinese president, Mr. Xi Jinping, in which he says that great rejuvenation of Chinese nation has entered irreversible historical process. So this shows that Chinese are conscious of their brilliant past, and this is a past which is not a mythical past, but the past which actually happened, the past which existed as a fact, and they want to go back to that past, or to want to have the same status in the world which the Chinese has once in the past. Now, what accounts for the persistence of Chinese civilization? Why the Chinese civilization is still there while all the other ancient civilizations don't exist anymore? Well, there are different reasons, but one reason for persistence of Chinese civilization is ancestor worship, or worshipping the spirits of forefathers. And this practice continues down to the present era, as you can see in this photograph. Customs were preserved as change in them would show a lack of respect for the ancestor. So because of their love and respect for the ancestors, the Chinese remained loyal to the customs and way of life of their ancestors. Now ancestor worship translates into, in the modern era, into great respect for elders or seniors. The old people are given a special status in Chinese society, and China is one of the few countries in the world where the parents can legally sue their children if they don't take care of them. So this shows the importance of ancestors or elders or seniors in the Chinese society. Respect for authority or boss remains therefore a key element of Chinese culture. Political leadership in China, as opposed to that in West, represents total power. Whether it is the founder of the PRC, Mao Zedong, the great reformer Deng Xiaoping, his successor Jiang Zemin, or the present incumbent Xi Jinping, their power is the total power, because in China the leadership is highly regarded. People in China respect and trust their leadership. Strikes, protests, and political unrest are uncommon in China. This makes China an ideal place for doing business. Not surprisingly, China has been a hotspot for multinational enterprises for last more than 4 decades, since the beginning of reforms in China in late 1970s. During the COVID-19, Chinese showed exemplary discipline during those difficult years. I personally was present in China during the COVID-19 period and saw with my own eyes the exemplary discipline shown by the Chinese people, from the children to the old, by obeying the government's instructions. And as you can see, the Chinese have, even the children were sitting in the classrooms and wearing masks, and Chinese are queuing up for nucleic acid test, because that was mandatory in China. So this is a very important, discipline among the population and respect for the instructions of the leadership is a very key feature of the Chinese culture. Now some words about the religion in China. Religion in China has little theology but is rich in rituals. Elaborate ceremonies for securing assistance of the spirits of the dead are an important part of Chinese religion. As you can see in these photographs, religion in China is rich in symbolism. Chinese mind is essentially secular. Religion regarded as one's personal matter. So in China, you may spend several years with your colleagues or with your friends, but you may never be able to know what is their religion, because the Chinese people don't like to discuss religion publicly, because they think that religion is their personal matter. For almost in its entire history, China has remained free of a state religion and established church. Religious or holy wars, which have been a very important feature, or rather unfortunate feature, of the West and also in the Middle East, are alien to the Chinese mind. Naturalism and humanism. Chinese thought has been essentially humanistic and naturalistic, largely detached from the supernatural. Harmonizing oneself with nature rather than manipulating nature has been the priorities of the Chinese. Chinese have always had a profound love of nature. So many of their cities are named after nature. For example, Beijing, China's capital, is translated into, if you translate into English, the word Bei means north, so it means the northern capital. Nanjing, which has been China's capital in the past, means the southern capital. And Shanghai, which is China's largest city, means over the city. So this shows Chinese love for the nature, that they have named their cities after the nature. Even the key Chinese festivals pertain to nature. China's most important and most highly celebrated festival is the Spring Festival or the New Year Festival. And this marks the beginning of spring in China. So this shows Chinese love and respect for nature. But although this has been a source of strength in Chinese culture, the love of nature has not been without its drawback. So one drawback of this love of nature was that physical sciences could not be systematically developed in China. until Chinese developed contacts with the West. Chinese society. The leading class in China has always been the mandarins, which include government officials, teachers, and intellectuals. The mandarins do not inherit their position but are recruited from all sections of society. China was the first country or civilization to introduce what is now called competitive examinations to fill the government positions. There has never been a powerful land-owning aristocracy or a large number of slaves in China. Chinese have always been lovers of peace. The soldier has seldom held a high status in Chinese society. So China is a very hierarchical society. So historically and traditionally, the Mandarin class, that is the intellectual class, or which includes the government officials, that has occupied the highest position in Chinese society, followed by farmers, artisans, merchants, and soldiers have had the lowest status in Chinese society. In China, individual duties are more important than rights. There is emphasis on meeting one's obligations. That is why China has never had, or probably will never have, individualism as in vogue in the West. Chinese have been more drawn towards social democracy because of their emphasis on the value of the individual or on their humanism, but or their view of equality. They put a great emphasis on equality of opportunity and merit. However, political democracy, as it is understood in West, has never worked in China, and it's very difficult to say that Western democracy will ever be able to take root in China. Chinese society has high reverence for leadership, and an important feature of Chinese society is correct or polite behavior in public. That's why you must have seen that seldom Chinese leaders make their emotions known or display their emotion publicly. Whatever grievances they have, they do it through diplomatic channels, because in public there has to be proper propriety and political behavior. Arts and crafts. In art, Chinese have excelled in landscape painting because of their love for nature. Chinese art and literature by and large show lack of originality. This is because of Chinese love for their ancestors or their elders, so the artists tend to copy the works of their ancestors. Chinese system of writing has thousands of symbols representing objects, abstract ideas, and sounds, which is difficult to master. That is why the difficulty in mastering the script made the experts or the mandarins a prestigious class in China. These are some of the major Chinese inventions like paper making, printing, compass, and gunpowder. Yin and Yang. Now, Yin and Yang is a very important idea in Chinese philosophy, in Chinese civilization. As you can see, there are two semicircles. The white circle is called Yang and the black circle is called Yin. The Yang is a symbol of positivity and creativity, while the Yin is a symbol of negative and deceptive force. Now, Yang is a white semicircle but has a black circle within it. Similarly, Yin is a black semicircle but has a white circle in it. Well, Yin and Yang represent actually synthesis of the opposites in China, because Chinese stand for harmony of the opposites rather than dissent or discord. So in China there is no room for either or. You can have to take a middle position, and Chinese believe in the synthesis of the opposites. The application of Yin Yang philosophy in China, one of the major manifestations is the market socialism. When reforms were introduced in China, so they tried to reconcile communism or socialism on one hand and capitalism on the other hand. So Chinese gave freedom of enterprise to the private sector, but the government continue to control and regulate the economy, and the political system still has one party system, in which a communist party calls all the shots. So China eschews bloc politics. China has never been a member of a military alliance because they don't, unlike the former Soviet Union or the Western Bloc, they don't believe in bloc politics or in alliances. Two of the most influential figures in Chinese history are Confucius, who lived about 5th century BCE, and Lao Tzu, or who's also pronounced Lao Tse. Though contemporaries, their teachings were as different as chalk and cheese. Confucius taught performance of one's duties, respect for authority, and preserving the social order. Lao Tse questioned the social order and rejected all forms of worship. Neither of them sought to establish a religion, but both are venerated as gods. So, this is an irony. The third important influence in China has been Buddhism, imported from India. Teachings of Confucius and Lao Tse will be introduced in next videos, while Buddhism will be discussed when we come to the Indian civilization. Hope you have enjoyed this video. Thank you very much. Please like, subscribe and share my channel. Thank you.